Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really close, hard look at the heavy-hitting items that can absolutely tank your credit scores. We are going to break down the anatomy of a bad credit report, focusing heavily on those severe, incredibly stubborn entries that the industry calls derogatory marks. So if you've ever wondered what actually happens behind the scenes when a debt goes south, well, you are definitely in the right place. Look, financial mistakes happen to the absolute best of us. But have you ever wondered exactly how long a specific financial misstep is going to haunt your credit report? Operating in the dark about the timeline of your credit history, that's a massive strategic disadvantage. Understanding the true lifespan of these marks on your record, that's what gives you the leverage you need to actually take control and plan your recovery. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, defining derogatory items. Second, we'll compare Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13. Third, we'll look at the penalty box timelines. And finally, the real road to recovery. Let's kick things off with Section 1, defining derogatory items. So, in the credit industry, derogatory is essentially the official term for severe negative entries on your credit report. According to the data, FICO scores that sit in that 300 to 579 range fall straight into the poor category. And if a score is sitting in this red zone, it's highly likely that the report contains some of these serious derogatory entries. At this level, lenders view borrowers as high risk. That means credit applications are often just flat out declined. Or, you might only qualify for secured cards that actually require a cash deposit upfront. There's honestly a sheer variety of ways a debt can go south. We're talking about major derogatory entries here: collection accounts, settled accounts, charge-offs, foreclosures, repossessions, voluntary surrenders, and of course, bankruptcies. Having a vehicle repossessed, for example, is a massive hit. Really, any single one of these can entirely override your other positive habits and drag your credit score way down. These are the heavyweights. Let's define a few of these clearly so we're all on the same page. A charge-off happens when a creditor basically just throws in the towel. They decide they're not going to be able to get the money you owe them, so they write your account off as a business loss. But hey, don't let the term written off fool you. You absolutely still owe that debt. In fact, a charge-off usually happens right before they sell your debt to a collection agency. Now, what about settled accounts? Sometimes a creditor will agree to accept less than the total amount you owe just to get it settled and done with. Sounds like a win, right? Well, actually, no. Even if you pay that newly agreed upon lower amount, it still goes down as a negative mark. Why? Because at the end of the day, you didn't repay the full debt amount you originally agreed to. I mean, sure, it's definitely better than leaving it completely unpaid, but make no mistake, settled debts will still bruise your score. And then we've got collection accounts. This is a debt in default that's been handed off to a collector. The crucial point you need to remember here is this: if a debt goes to collections, it sits on your credit report for 7 years from the date of your initial missed payment, literally the date you went 30 days late. And here's a huge detail from our sources. Even if that debt gets sold from one collection agency to another and then maybe to another, the timeline does not reset. Trying to re-age those accounts to make them look more recent, that's actually a direct violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Moving on to Section 2, Chapter 7 versus Chapter 13. As our source material pretty bluntly puts it, a bankruptcy filing can be the kiss of death for your credit score. It's a massive, severe blow. But, and this is absolutely crucial, you can recover. It is not a permanent life sentence. It's just going to take a significant amount of time and some seriously disciplined habits to rebuild. The exact type of bankruptcy you file dramatically changes the long-term impact on your report. With a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, none of the debt included in the filing gets repaid at all. Because it's a total wipeout of that debt, the penalty is steeper. It stays on your credit report for 10 long years from the date it was filed. On the flip side, with a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you actually agree to a plan to repay a portion of what you owe. Since you're making that partial repayment, it cycles off your credit report a little sooner, typically dropping off in 7 years from the date it's paid. But, there are some really important nuances to those rules. For instance, if you start a Chapter 13 repayment plan, but for whatever reason is not completed, that bankruptcy is going to stick on your report for the full 10 years. Alternatively, if a bankruptcy is voluntarily dismissed, it stays on your record for 7 years. The rules here are incredibly strict, and the credit bureaus track these statuses meticulously. Which brings us right to Section 3, the penalty box timelines. To give you a concrete sense of the long-term impact here, take a look at the data. Notice a pattern? The penalty box essentially lasts between 7 and 10 years. Late payments, collections, foreclosures, civil judgments, those generally haunt your report for 7 years. Stepping up to that 10-year mark, you've got your Chapter 7 bankruptcies and unpaid tax liens, though tax liens can sometimes vary by state laws or, frankly, even be reported indefinitely. That is a really long time to be sitting in the penalty box, which is exactly why avoiding these marks in the first place is so absolutely critical. All right, let's talk solutions. Section 4, the real road to recovery. If you're sitting there right now with a bruised credit report, this is where you take your power back. First things first, we need to deliver a very strong warning straight from the source material. Quote, if a credit repair organization offers to help you fix your credit for a fee, be very careful. Look, there are a lot of predatory companies out there promising you quick fixes and secret loopholes, but if the negative information on your credit report is accurate and current, no one, literally no one, can legally remove it. So here's the bottom line. Credit repair companies cannot do a single thing for you that you can't just do yourself, for completely free. In fact, a lot of these companies charge hefty fees. That's money you should actually be using to pay down your debts. Worse yet, some of them will advise you to stop paying your current bills and put money into an account they control to offer settlements later. Guess what? Creditors do not have to accept those settlements, and stopping your payments, that's just going to severely damage your credit even further. So what actually works? Here are the only factual, proven steps to repairing damaged credit. Step 1, pay your bills on time, every single time. Step 2, pay down your debt over time. And step 3, limit applying for new credit. Having too many credit applications just makes you look desperate for borrowed money. I know, it's not flashy and it's definitely not a quick fix. It requires immense patience and discipline. We really need to set some realistic expectations here. According to the data, it typically takes up to 7 years to develop a very good credit score of 700 or more. Whether you're building a great score completely from scratch or you're recovering from a major hit like a foreclosure or a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you have to treat this as a marathon, not a sprint. You know, a mountain isn't climbed in a single leap. No matter what your starting point is, and honestly, no matter how many derogatory marks you currently have dragging you down, taking control of your daily financial habits is going to bring steady improvement to your score over time. Because as those older negative marks age, their impact lessens, and your new positive payment history starts carrying way more weight. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen the anatomy of a bad credit report, the long, stubborn timelines of the penalty box, and the harsh reality that there are just no magic loopholes. So, if time and discipline are the only true cures for bruised credit report, what single financial habit will you change today to protect your tomorrow? Take control of your financial narrative. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep building that healthy credit.